August 14, 2017, Shiny Row, Northeast England, 9:44 p.m., 11:44 p.m., 11:45 p.m., 12:51 a.m., August 15, 2017. To enhance the reliability and authenticity of this case, we have examined and analyzed all surveillance camera footage from the Durham City Police Department in England, as well as all trial records from this case featured in the Sunday Sun, the largest newspaper in Northeast England. William John McFall was born in 1967 and grew up in a small rural town in Northern Ireland. The residents lived in constant fear and uncertainty due to the Irish Civil War from 1921 to 1971. In this unstable environment, William lacked proper care and education from his parents. As a result, he began displaying antisocial behavior from a young age. Neighbors recall William as a child who appeared homeless, living on a boat and always wearing a pair of oversized boots. He had no friends, but everyone knew William, albeit in a negative light. People avoided him because there was always something odd about him. From a young age, William would roam the neighborhood, always carrying something hard or sharp enough to harm others. He deliberately tried to leave a negative impression and wanted people to remember him as a threat. Achieving this made William relish the sense of triumph he felt when people looked at him with caution. Another notable characteristic of William's behavior as a child was his tendency to act obediently around those who seemed stronger and ruthlessly towards those who were weaker. While in elementary school, William did something horrifying to a kind and caring teacher. One day, he broke into the school through a window and cruelly killed all the fish in the teacher's aquarium. He then placed one fish on the teacher's desk, one in her book, one on the classroom's blackboard, and the last one on her chair before running away. In another instance, William brought 40 dead rats to display in the school. It's a known fact that one common trait among serial killers is that they often exhibit cruelty towards animals when they are young or before committing murder. Consequently, both his peers and teachers were terrified of William, dubbing him Crazy John. However, what they didn't realize was that their fear and avoidance only fueled William's sense of triumph. By his 20s, William had committed numerous crimes, primarily assault and theft. Then, in early May 1996, at the age of 29, William heard a rumor that an elderly neighbor, 86-year-old Martha Gilmore, had a large sum of cash hidden under her bed. On the morning of Sunday, May 5, 1996, William took a heavy metal object and went to Martha's house. Martha, who could barely walk due to back pain and arthritis, didn't respond when William rang the doorbell twice. Mistakenly thinking no one was home, William was unaware that Martha was slowly making her way to the door, struggling to find her cane. Thinking no one was home, William broke in through a window and immediately encountered Martha, who was using her cane to walk out of her bedroom. As they were close neighbors, Martha seemed to recognize William instantly. In his panic, William struck Martha 3 times with the heavy metal object until she collapsed. He then brutally kicked her, leaving her bloodied and lifeless. William fled the scene, but his fingerprints were left on the doorbell and door handle. Thanks to a tip from Martha's caretaker, the police arrived and, upon examining the evidence, identified the fingerprints as William's. He was arrested 3 hours later. Martha had been a manager at a shipping company before retiring. After her husband's death, she lived alone but remained a warm and kind neighbor. At that moment, William could have just pushed Martha aside and fled, or simply taken her money. But he chose to act with cruel brutality against a frail, elderly woman. About a year after the crime, on April 11, 1997, William was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison in Northern Ireland. He was 30 years old at the time. Stephen Unwin was born on February 16, 1978, in Durham, England. He was the youngest son of a poor working-class couple. His difficult upbringing led to many negative actions. At 13, Stephen set fire to a large truck and stole everything inside. Over the following years, he committed numerous thefts, muggings, and assaults, accumulating a long criminal record. Unlike typical burglaries where the perpetrator would flee after stealing, Stephen would set fire to the house, believing the fire would destroy all evidence of his crime. In the summer of 1998, when Stephen turned 20, he befriended an elderly neighbor named John Greenwell, a retired pharmacist aged 73. However, Stephen's intentions were far from good in forming this friendship. Knowing that John was a kind and wealthy old man, suffering from cancer and mostly bedridden, Stephen decided to approach him. He aimed to get close to John to spy on his house for valuable items and seize the opportunity to steal them when the time was right. On December 25, 1998, Stephen sneaked into John's house and stole an expensive Chanel camera. After stealing the camera and preparing to leave, for some reason, he changed his mind and went upstairs to John's bedroom. There he saw John lying alone watching TV. Stephen then attacked John, pressing the camera against his neck. To ensure John's death, he stabbed him with a sharp object he had prepared. Stephen then took the TV and a tape recorder from the house and left. Of course, he didn't forget to set the house on fire on his way out. After discovering the crime scene, the police were dispatched to investigate. While searching around the house, they noticed Stephen carrying a TV and a tape recorder back and forth between his house and a trash bin. Growing suspicious, the police called him over. Upon learning Stephen's name and address, they checked his criminal record and found that he had committed several arsons and thefts. They arrested him that night. Initially, there was no direct evidence linking Stephen to John's murder. However, the police found Stephen's fingerprints and DNA in an unexpected place, on the roll of tape used to secure the TV and tape recorder he had stolen. In a foolish move while carrying the stolen items out of the victim's house, Stephen decided to wrap them in tape to make them easier to transport. This left his fingerprints and DNA on the tape. On October 29, 1999, about a year after the crime, Stephen was sentenced to life imprisonment for first-degree murder at Newcastle Crown Court. He was just 21 years old. Colin Dobson, the detective in charge of the case at the time, said that Stephen's face showed no signs of remorse or any emotion when he was sentenced to life and was transferred to HMS Swaleside Prison in Kent. There, Stephen's cellmate was none other than William. Instinctively, the two men recognized they were of the same kind. Both were eventually released after serving their minimum sentences with the condition of parole in about 14 years. They shared stories of their crimes and murders, becoming close friends. In 2010, William was released at the age of 43. 2 years later, Stephen was also released at 34. While in prison, Stephen had corresponded and built a relationship with Rachel Edmondson, a childhood friend from the same neighborhood. Upon his release, Stephen reunited with Rachel. After dating for a while, they slept together several times, resulting in Rachel becoming pregnant with Stephen's daughter. Naturally, they became a couple, though they didn't officially marry, and they settled back in Stephen's hometown of Durham to start a new life. Stephen seemed to be trying to settle down and live respectably in his hometown. He found a job as a maintenance repairman, responsible for repairs at hotels and real estate companies. However, there was a significant obstacle in his marriage. Stephen constantly monitored Rachel's every move, and if she didn't obey him, he would get extremely angry, drink, and abuse her both verbally and physically. Especially after phone conversations with his old cellmate William, Stephen would suddenly become even more violent towards Rachel. William occasionally visited Stephen's home. Rachel described her impression of William as terrifying, both in appearance and in the rage that simmered within him. She always felt uneasy around him. Eventually, Stephen and Rachel broke up. Though Rachel got custody of their daughter, Stephen continued to see his daughter once a week and fulfilled his responsibilities as a father. Surprisingly, in mid-2017, shortly after his breakup with Rachel, 39-year-old Stephen and 50-year-old William moved in together in a house in Durham, as if they had been waiting for this moment for a long time. In this town, there was also a Vietnamese woman named Nguyen Ngoc Quyen, known as Anna in English. Born on May 14, 1990, in Hanoi, Vietnam, she emigrated to Shiny Row in 2010 to study and seek a better economic life. She majored in economics at a university. During the day, Anna worked as an accountant and manager at a real estate company. At night and on weekends, she stayed with her sister, who had also emigrated to England and settled with her. Anna's sister worked part-time at a nearby nail salon. Anna had a son and a daughter from her previous marriage. Her 4-year-old son moved to England with her, while her daughter remained in Vietnam with her ex-husband. Anna sent most of the money she earned in England to support her children's education and her family in Vietnam. According to her sister and colleagues, Anna was very hardworking, often working 2 jobs late into the night for the sake of her children's future. In April 2016, while Stephen was still married and working as a maintenance repairman, he met Anna when he began maintaining the houses she managed. Both shared a common bond of being devoted parents. Whenever there were issues with the rental properties, Stephen was always ready to help, leaving a very positive impression on Anna. By mid-2017, as mentioned earlier, after separating from his wife, Stephen and William moved to the same city where Anna lived. On August 14, 2017, at Stephen's house, CCTV footage recorded William being led into the house by Stephen at 5:23 p.m. At 6:17 p.m., Anna was seen leaving the nail salon and driving her black Audi A4. By 7:22 p.m., Anna's car was spotted on the road. At 7:24 p.m., Anna parked her Audi briefly in a side lane behind Stephen's house, a location where parking is only allowed temporarily for urgent matters. By 7:32 p.m. behind Stephen's house, Anna had been waiting for a call from someone for about 8 minutes. At 7:34 p.m., Stephen met her, and they both went into his house. After this point, no one saw Anna leave. Approximately 2 hours and 20 minutes later, at 9:50 p.m., Stephen left the house and drove somewhere. He stopped at a nearby convenience store with an ATM, where he withdrew about $500 and bought a small bottle of liquor. This was captured by the store's surveillance cameras. At 11:44 p.m., Stephen and his friend William were seen behind the house, carrying a white wrapped object. Stephen carried the object while William held the fabric to prevent it from unraveling. They placed the object in the trunk of Anna's Audi A4. At 11:54 p.m., Anna's car was seen driving on a nearby road. By 12:08 a.m. on August 15, 2017, Anna's car was spotted at a location about a 15-minute drive from Stephen's house. At 12:18 a.m., surveillance cameras recorded Stephen and William walking back towards their home. They walked for about 30 minutes to reach Stephen's car and then drove away. At 12:50 a.m., a car fire was reported in a remote area of Sunderland. A fire truck was dispatched to extinguish the blaze. Shockingly, inside the burned car, the police found a charred body. This was about 5 hours after Anna entered Stephen's house. By 12:55 a.m., Stephen's car appeared in an area in Sunderland. Both men went to a nearby post office and withdrew another $500. By 1:50 a.m., the police and firefighters had extinguished the fire, but the body was so badly burned that it couldn't be identified. Despite finding partially burned passports and immigration papers in the car, they were unable to determine the exact identity of the victim. By 7 a.m. in the town of Killingworth, Anna's sister woke up to get ready for work as usual. The night before, Anna had left a message saying she would be visiting one of the houses she managed, but by morning she still hadn't returned home. Worried, Anna's sister called her, but the phone was off. Knowing Anna always kept her phone on to respond to clients, her sister knew something was wrong. She immediately reported Anna's disappearance to the police and provided all her identifying information. That afternoon, Stephen and William went shopping separately in nearby malls and then to a bar for drinks. Around 9 p.m. that evening, Anna's sister received a call from the police. They informed her that Anna's Audi had been found completely burned out on the side of the road in a remote village, with a charred body inside, suspected to be Anna's. Dental records were used to identify and confirm the body. Despite her disbelief, Anna's sister waited for the autopsy results, which ultimately confirmed that the body was indeed Anna's. Recognizing this as a serious murder case, the police immediately launched an investigation. First, they traced Anna's last known movements and confirmed that her car was last parked near Stephen's house. The police considered Stephen the prime suspect. They also reviewed all nearby surveillance cameras, which captured the last images of Anna entering the back of Stephen's house. Finally, they investigated the usage history of Anna's credit and debit cards. Tracing the recent ATM withdrawals, the police discovered that Anna's cards had been used at a convenience store. When they reviewed the store's surveillance footage, they found that Stephen was the one using Anna's cards. Based on this evidence, the police obtained a court order to arrest Stephen and began searching his house for any evidence or traces related to the crime. DNA samples collected from Anna's toothbrush and mask matched the DNA found in various places in Stephen's house. Additionally, CCTV footage revealed that another man, named William, had also been present at the house. William was subsequently arrested as an accomplice. All these events transpired within 48 hours of Anna entering Stephen's house, where she was last seen. About 6 months after their arrest, on February 20, 2018, the first trial began before a jury at Newcastle Crown Court. The following content reenacts the actual trial records between Newcastle prosecutor Jamie Hill and the defendants Stephen and William, as reported by the Sunday Sun, the largest newspaper in northeast England. Prosecutor Jamie Hill addressed the jury, stating, "The defendants are charged with the murder of a woman named Anna, whose Vietnamese name is Nguyen Ngoc Cuyen. During our investigation, we collected phone calls, text message exchanges between the defendants Stephen and William, as well as surveillance footage around Stephen's house, which all helped to uncover the truth of that day." Anna, 28, immigrated to England in 2010, graduated from university, and lived with her 4-year-old son. She was a petite woman, standing 5'2" and weighing 125 pounds. While living and working in England, she assisted many immigrants who lacked the necessary documentation or permits to live and work in the UK, helping them secure housing. During her work at a real estate company, Anna, along with some Vietnamese immigrants, legally grew cannabis for medical use, having obtained the necessary permits in England. Recently, Anna had met the defendant Stephen. Based on phone data from the defendants, we have determined that Stephen stole cannabis without Anna's consent. Stephen took a small amount home to profit from it. It is possible that Stephen and his accomplices targeted Anna to acquire the entire crop. On the day of the incident, August 14, 2017, Anna was working at a nail salon with her sister. She then went to meet a real estate agent in Gateshead to sign a lease agreement for one of the buildings she managed. She also visited another building in the Stanley area, and finally, for unclear reasons, she unexpectedly visited Stephen's house in Shiny Row. Her image was captured at the back of his house at 7:24 p.m. that evening. It is likely that Anna did not intend to stay long at Stephen's house. Anna only parked temporarily on the side road behind his house, and upon receiving a message from Stephen, she left her handbag in the car and went inside. About 4 hours after entering the house, a white cloth-covered object believed to be Anna's body was recorded on CCTV being carried out the back door. To clarify what terrible events occurred during those 4 hours in Stephen's house, we will now interrogate the defendant along with thoroughly collected forensic evidence. The following is a reconstruction of the interrogation during the trial between Prosecutor Hill and defendant Stephen. Prosecutor Hill: Defendant Stephen: How did you know Anna? Stephen: My job was maintaining facilities at a real estate company, and she was the manager in charge of those properties, so we got to know each other. Prosecutor Hill: Were you two close? Stephen: Yes, of course. We had some common interest from the moment we met, and I helped her a lot. I went to many of the houses she managed to fix things that were broken. She relied on me a lot. Prosecutor Hill: You said you were close to her. What made you two become closer? Stephen: No. We were just friends who met at work. However, I knew she had a bit of a crush on me. Prosecutor Hill: Why did she come to your house on August 14, 2017? Stephen: I was at home resting with my friend William, when suddenly Anna texted me saying she wanted to grow her cannabis in a larger space and would come over to ask if I knew of a good place. Prosecutor Hill: So you knew she was growing cannabis. Did you also grow cannabis at home? Stephen: No, except for trying a little bit when I was younger. I have never seen or used cannabis. As her friend, I just wanted to help her out. Prosecutor Hill: What did she do after entering your house? Stephen: After discussing the cannabis growing location and talking about some repairs for the house we managed, she left right away. Prosecutor Hill: Is that so? But there is no camera footage showing her leaving the house. Stephen: I don't know, maybe because she was small, she got out of the camera's view due to the walls. Prosecutor Hill, loudly: Are you insulting our intelligence defendant? Prosecutor Hill: The forensic evidence collected from your house and the scientific findings tell a completely different story. Stephen: I don't know. Prosecutor Hill then addressed the entire court. Let's talk about the truth of that day. After recovering the data from Anna's mobile phone, we found that she didn't know William was also at Stephen's house at that time. The defendants exchanged texts for an hour before she arrived, specifically at 6:16 p.m. We also recovered a message William sent to Stephen that said, "Today we will humiliate that Chinese girl." William was waiting in the house, and as soon as Anna entered with Stephen, he knocked her out with an unidentified blunt weapon. Both of them then restrained her. They brutally beat Anna, who was writhing in pain, then tore off all her clothes and humiliated her. The bloodiest scene was right next to the dining table in front of the living room. It was so horrific that blood splattered up to the ceiling. Stephen at this point could only mutter meaningless phrases like, "I didn't do anything, it wasn't me." Prosecutor Hill: What do you mean? Stephen: It wasn't me. I was talking business with Anna at the table when my daughter called. So I went to the backyard to take the call, and when I came back in I heard a loud thud and Anna screaming by the dining table. I rushed in to see William using his right foot to stomp on Anna's face, who was on the floor with a rope around her neck. He yelled something about cannabis. I tried my best to stop him, but I was too shocked and scared to push him away. A few seconds later, she passed out, and I thought she had died right there. Prosecutor Hill, pressing more intensely: But why did you lie earlier, saying she left the house on her own? Stephen: I was scared. Anyway, I am absolutely not the kind of person who could harm her, and I had no reason to do so. Prosecutor Hill: It seems the defendant still doesn't grasp the situation. We're not done yet. Anna's DNA and bodily fluids were found on several items in your house. First, on the gun barrel we found Anna's DNA and fluids. This means after beating her with the gun, the defendants used the barrel to assault her sexually. Why did you do this? Stephen, stammering: I never did that. I know the gun belongs to William. I have never even seen that gun. Prosecutor Hill: Then what is this video? Isn't this your house? Stephen: I don't know. Prosecutor Hill, presenting the second piece of evidence. Anna's DNA was found on the tip of this toy sword. What did you do with this? Stephen: I gave it to Anna's 4-year-old son that day. She thanked me for the gift and probably touched it then, transferring her DNA. Prosecutor Hill: Typically when people touch a toy sword they hold the handle. Who touches the tip? Moreover, we didn't find her DNA on the handle. Stephen remained silent. Prosecutor Hill: Our third crucial piece of evidence. A significant amount of Anna's DNA was found on Marvel-branded underwear discovered in your house, especially in the crotch area. After incapacitating her, you assaulted her multiple times. Stephen: I don't know what you're talking about. This is ridiculous. Prosecutor Hill: I'll say it again. Anna's DNA was found on the underwear you wore that day, not just the underwear but also on the pants you wore. Do you still deny this? Stephen: I'll tell the truth. We did have a relationship, but it was only once, 3 days before the incident, on August 11th. Anna and I had sex at my house. Prosecutor Hill: Is that so? Didn't you previously testify that you two were just business associates with no romantic involvement? If she had a relationship with you at your house on August 11th, is that why your pants and underwear had so much of her DNA? Stephen: Yes, that's correct. Prosecutor Hill: We anticipated you might come up with such an excuse. So, we checked all the surveillance cameras near your house a week before the incident. On August 11th, Anna didn't even go to the nail salon where she worked, let alone visit your house. That was the day her 4-year-old son was hospitalized due to illness. No one was seen around your house that day. Prosecutor Hill: why did you suddenly take her card and withdraw money about 2.5 hours after Anna entered the house? And why were you wearing sunglasses and a hat that night? Were you trying to conceal your identity? Stephen: she asked me to withdraw $500 from her bank account to pay for something. I was just helping her out. As for the sunglasses, I have dry eyes and the lights at night are too bright. Prosecutor Hill: that's an irresponsible excuse. She gave you her password and asked you to withdraw money from her account. Why wouldn't she do it herself? You testified earlier that she just talked to you briefly and left immediately. Then William killed her and you witnessed it. So when did she have the time to give you her bank card? Why do you keep changing your story? Stephen, weakly: everything happened 6 months ago, so I don't remember clearly. Prosecutor Hill: so what did you do with her body after she died? Stephen: I don't remember exactly, but William took her body and threatened me. William said he would kill my daughter if I didn't help him. I had no choice but to follow and place Anna's body in the back seat of her car. We drove to the end of a deserted dirt road to dispose of it. Prosecutor Hill: by dispose, you mean you burned her and the car? Stephen: yes, I didn't do it. William poured gasoline on her face and body in the back seat and set it on fire. I couldn't bear to watch, so we walked back home afterward. Prosecutor Hill: one last question. Do you have anything to say to Anna in heaven now? Stephen: she was a very kind and lovely person. It's a real tragedy. The following is a reconstruction of the interrogation during the trial between Prosecutor Hill and Defendant William. Prosecutor Hill: William: were you Stephen's cellmate? William: yes, we were in the same cell. Prosecutor Hill: you two were very close, friends even? William: no, I don't consider him a friend. He often beat me in prison. Since Stephen arrived, I was constantly threatened with death. After he got out, he threatened my family and said if I didn't do what he wanted, there would be severe consequences. That's why I ended up living with him. Prosecutor Hill: so, you and Anna had never met before? William: yes, I met her for the first time that day. Prosecutor Hill: did you greet each other? Can you explain exactly what happened that day? William began to recount. That day, while I was in the laundry room at the back of the house doing laundry as Stephen had asked, I noticed someone had entered the house. I thought it was Stephen's daughter since she occasionally visited. While I was putting clothes into the washing machine, there was a sudden loud noise from the kitchen. I rushed in and saw Stephen with his right arm around the neck of an Asian woman I had never seen before. He then tied her hands while she was semi-conscious and put a pillowcase I was about to wash over her head. I tried to stop him and asked what he was doing, but Stephen didn't listen and threatened to kill me if I didn't help him. Stephen then struck her head multiple times with a gun and threatened to kill her. I was too scared to even look. Stephen tried to assault her but couldn't, so he started cursing. He told me to do it if I wanted to, but I felt sorry for her and said I would go outside. After smoking a cigarette, I returned to find her unconscious by the table, and Stephen drinking whiskey. Prosecutor Hill: did Stephen use this syringe? William: yes. He filled the syringe with whiskey and injected it into her. When she regained consciousness, he humiliated her with a toy stick and demanded her bank card and PIN. After getting the PIN, he left to withdraw money. Before leaving, he covered her face with the pillowcase again. Prosecutor Hill: all of this happened within about 2.5 hours after she entered the house, correct? William: yes, about that long. He used the gun to threaten me and locked me in the shed in the backyard. When he returned, I thought Anna was already dead. I had to stay alive, so I obediently stayed in the shed. Prosecutor Hill: based on the surveillance camera data, it appears you both moved the body and set it on fire together, correct? William: I had no choice. He made me move her body to her car and told me to follow him. So, I did. He then stopped somewhere and suddenly pulled out a can of gasoline from who knows where. He poured it over her and set her on fire. I just stood there and watched. Prosecutor Hill: The defendant stole some cannabis plants from one of the houses she managed, didn't they? William: I only tried cannabis when I was younger. I haven't touched it in a long time. I never saw any cannabis in Stephen's house. Prosecutor Hill: This video was extracted from Stephen's phone. It shows a shed full of cannabis plants with both William and Stephen looking pleased. William, sorrowfully: I have nothing to say. Prosecutor Hill: You said you were coerced by Stephen, so what about this message sent an hour before Anna arrived at the house? This is your message to Stephen. Today, we will humiliate that Chinese girl. Everyone in the courtroom was stunned at William's response. In March 2018, during the intense legal battle in court, the opinion of a forensic expert who performed the autopsy on Anna was revealed, shocking everyone present. Ash from the fire was found inside her body, specifically in her lungs. What does this mean? It proves that she was still alive and breathing, at least up until the moment they poured gasoline on her face and body and set her on fire. She was burned alive. On the last day of William's trial, the prosecutor demanded an explanation for the message he had sent to Stephen. The explanation that followed shocked the entire jury. William said, "It's just slang we used. Stephen sometimes cooked Chinese-style curry for me, and we loved eating that curry. Whenever we had that curry, we used the slang term woman to refer to it. It's just a way of speaking, not meant literally." At this moment, everyone realized. In the kitchen they found a plate of curry and a ladle, indicating that these two cold-blooded individuals sat and ate curry at the dining table to satisfy their hunger, while watching Anna, barely alive, lying next to them. This was the strongest evidence proving that the two defendants were accomplices. Finally, after about 2 months of trial, on April 25, 2018, the last day of the trial, the judge based the verdict on scientifically and professionally verified DNA evidence. The examination results of the phones used by the defendants, along with the credible positions of the forensic science team, supported the jury's guilty verdict that Stephen was the mastermind, and William was an accomplice in planning and executing the collective crime against Anna. The sentences pronounced for the two defendants, Stephen and William, were for first-degree murder, destruction of evidence, and desecration of a human body. The total sentence was life imprisonment without parole. At the court, the victim's sister expressed her grief and regret, questioning why two thugs like Stephen and William, who had committed murder years ago, were released after serving life sentences. If they had served their full sentences, Anna might still be alive. Anna's sister tearfully said, "We cannot understand why such individuals are allowed to live freely in this country. My sister trusted this country. We hoped for a safer life with better opportunities for ourselves and our children. Our lives have been shattered." Dear viewers, William John McFall and Stephen Unwin, two brutal murderers with dark pasts, together committed the heinous murder of Anna, a hard-working Vietnamese woman who hoped for a better future. This tragedy serves as a lesson and caution within relationships. Always be vigilant and do not allow yourself to be exploited. What do you think about this case? Please leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to see more content like this, click on the thumbnail displayed on the screen. For now, goodbye and see you next time.